Excellent. All right, roll call. Tyler Crook is here. Jennifer Eccles.
Here.
Napoleon. Gone. Tracy. Dylan. Present.
Here.
Emily Sims.
Present.
Kat Lundquist. Nope. Robin Onstadt. Councilor Hernandez.
Here.
Sarah Frost.
Here.
Crystal Stevens.
Present.
Any other guests?
None, and you do have a quorum.
We do have our Bridget.
Bridget's not on. You have a Bridget.
Let us commence quoruming. Are there any changes we want to make to the agenda? I thought I would add maybe under new business to just discuss briefly the I forget what it's called about book challenges.
The
the
collection development policy.
The collection development policy. All right. Would anyone like to approve the meeting notes from last month? Which we just got.
You glance over.
These are great, by the way.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
very exciting to see. So many notes.
Yes. If you have time to read.
Well, in the past, I've actually gone back and watched the videos.
To remember what it was about. Yeah, for sure.
This is great.
That's how I got them to watch the video.
Right? There's a quiz on the next meeting.
Well, I can motion to approve the March 21st, 2023 meeting minutes.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Second.
Approved. Okay. And we have no presentations today, so I guess we get to jump right into Sarah giving us our library report.
We'll see how fast I can make this. So a few things I want to share. I did receive a Polk County Youth Mini Grant that I applied for, and that grant is to pay for outdoor movie nights at the library. How I came to conclusion on what the grant was going to be for was based on a survey that was done up at the high school of the teens. And I took that report of that survey, and the most requested item on that survey was movies. So hence, I now have money to do outdoor movie nights, and I've got my first teens coming in this Saturday, and I'm really going to be looking to engage with them to plan and execute the movie night. So we'll see how that goes.
You just set up a screen like in the parking lot?
Yeah, and what's super cool is I budgeted to purchase a screen, and then lo and behold, it happened that the city of Willamina had purchased one some moons ago with hopes of doing outdoor movies. So I'll be able to save a little bit of money because now we have a screen. I just have to practice setting it up because it ain't the easy peasy inflatable one I was So yeah, the grant was going to cover a movie screen, projector, speakers, some accessory equipment, popcorn machine, movies, and additional supplies. So it wasn't much. I think my total was like about $2,400. So yeah, so we're still waiting for the check, but the grant money has to be spent by June 30th. And then we'll start movie nights as soon as I can.
Awesome.
That sounds really fun.
Also, so summer reading program. So sorry, Tracy, you don't have this, but I'll make sure to email it out once I have my final draft. This is just a draft of the summer reading program edition newsletter. And I'm just waiting to hear back from a couple of partners to finalize their attendance at some of these. And today we finalized our Summer Splash series. So this is all the things we have going on, and I'm trying to get it completed so that I can attend kindergarten registration next Tuesday and start putting the word out about all the amazing programs that we have going on. And that leads me to the people I met with today for the Summer Splash series asked me how I would feel if we started a youth program committee at the library with volunteers. And I said, where have you been all my life? So I'll be working with them over the next several months to kind of get that ball rolling. It'll be legwork up front, but then it should mean I have a more hands-off to our youth programming, which will actually be helpful.
May I ask what the first part of that was? Because I was still reading about the splash. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no.
I heard the second part, but
the people who will be running the Summer Splash series asked if they could start a youth program committee.
Oh,
tongue twister. So that's all the fun stuff. And then after the summer reading program newsletter that you have there, remember it's a draft. You have the report that I prepared that has our Q3 net lending and circulation statistics. Again, I'll get that emailed to you too, Tracy, so that you have it. Actually, I can pull it up if you want to save it. Share screen. That is very prepared. Sure. Let's see. Screen number 1. Okay. I had a report error. In fact, I will share that. Can you see this, Tracy? My net lending report?
Yes, I can.
So we got our Q3 net lending information. And then down in circulation, I was able to add our February and our March circulation stats. Again, this year compared to last year, with a couple of notes. We did have a report error when we tried to run our renewals. So we weren't able to get those numbers, and I have to go back, and those reports aren't user friendly. And then I wanted to capture that this year. Of course, we had our modified schedules for February and March, which had a great impact on our circulation numbers as well. So yes, so that's that. And then the next piece of paper I have for this report is I wanted you to be able to see where we were at with net lending comparable to other member libraries, which kind of is a great reminder that net lending isn't always guaranteed. And I think it was last meeting or the meeting before where I talked a little bit about how the formula for this is not very equitable across member libraries. So at some point in the future, I imagine this will be looked at. For now, it's not, but it is strictly just based on a setting in our computer system as to which library gets to pull a hold over another library. So that's the net lending report, and on the back side of that, just for you to have, and this won't be new to Tracy, is the CCRLS reimbursement to city and district members. At the last meeting, I talked about those numbers and what our share was and how they figure out our share, but I wanted you to have the full picture of what all the libraries get compared to us. And again, we actually will be looking at that formula. It's now on the radar, trying to come up with a more equitable formula across the board for our member libraries. So that will be a very long process though, and will come from the CCRLS Council and then down from that board of members, which Tracy is the rule lay member on the CCRLS Council. So that's just my library report. because I have more to share later. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about any of the information I have given to you.
Could you make, once this one is updated and ready to go, could you bring it to city council too? Just because they, I mean, I don't know, is that normal? Do you usually do that?
Way many moons ago.
I just think it'd be interesting for us to count.
Yeah, I would be happy to.
A lot of good information. Thank you.
I'll be sharing my screen again in just a bit, Tracy, with the next round of information. Yeah, and once I have the final draft of that, it'll be going out in all kinds of places. And definitely first to the kindergarten registration next Tuesday evening. And then if I can get the final stamp on it before Saturday, we've got our Saturday programming here at the library, and I'll have it available then too, for all the people who come through.
All right. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Library board member reports. That would just be the fundraising committee and the new library facility committee, I guess. We kind of need Capola here to do the whole fundraising committee thing, but I sat in on that, and I can't remember everything that's important to talk about, so that's why I need Capola. But we did go over some fundraising stuff as far as ideas for doing setting up a Patreon and a GoFundMe and stuff like that we can sort of keep going. But a lot of that requires the 501c3 to go through. And as far as the 501c3 progress, we are still waiting for Marion to finish up tax season, which is finishing today. I spoke to her today, and she said to talk to her in May. She said she'll be back from vacation on May 1st, so we can bug her right after that. So as soon as on May 2nd, I'll give her a call and we'll schedule time to get together, and we'll start that in earnest. That's very exciting to me. I'm very excited about studying 501c3. And then the other thing that we talked about was rolling the new library facility group into the fundraising group to be one group. And that's mostly because our town doesn't have enough people to support this many subcommittees. So it seemed to make sense since a bulk of the new libraries committee's work will be fundraising. And I think we need to do a vote on that, just to make sure everyone thinks that's a good idea.
Who votes on that? Would it be, you mean those groups?
No, I think the library board should vote on that.
Yeah, the board initially assigned the subcommittee of library facility planning. So not that we're dissolving the committee, but essentially taking two committees and blending them, and then eventually the fundraising committee won't be a committee of the library board once they have their 501(c)(3) established. So I think if the library board wants to motion and vote to move the library facility planning project to the fundraising committee umbrella, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. But I don't, do you want to wait until Capola's here?
Yeah,
the next fundraising committee meeting's not until July 9th, which is when we'll talk about facility planning again. So we can push it off till next month if we want to wait on Capola.
Yeah, let's do that. And then we might actually have more info on the 501c3 structure and how that needs to be set up by then too. Because there is, we think at this point that the 501c3 committee has to be a separate entity from the library board for liability purposes, I guess. But we'll get more info on that in the coming months. Yeah. Emily, do you have anything you want to add about the fundraising?
I'm trying to think, I didn't bring my notes either.
All right, is there any other library board member reports then? I don't think there are, right? Okay. Continued business then. The new library facility, basically, and that's why we're moving into why we want to combine it with the fundraising things, because it's the same. I just told you everything about it.
No, you didn't.
All right, and then the homelessness response and prevention.
Yeah, I can give a quick update on that. We were scheduled to have our next meeting, and we've really shifted gears towards talking about emergency shelter response. I think I had mentioned before, and unfortunately I've had to put off our next meeting of May. So that group will reconvene in June, on June 8th actually, and we're going to actually do another community meeting that day, instead of just the group that's been talking about what shelter services could look like in the West Valley, to bring our community partners back to the table and talk about what it would take to pop up shelter services and get community feedback. And then I've invited some of our friends who run the Polk County shelters to be able to come and speak and answer questions about what that looks like for them as well. And then hopefully I'll get a couple of other speakers lined up for that too. So it'll be another 2-hour night. Originally, we were going to hold the meeting here, but I may actually try to connect with a couple of our partners, either at the campus or at the fire station, to see if we could move the location to open it up a little bit. And then again, that would include our partners from City of Sheridan and Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. So it'll be June, what did I say, 8th? Yeah, June 8th. It's a Thursday. It'll be from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. Again, with a community discussion surrounding emergency shelter pop-up services during cold weather events before we move into a cold weather season, which is November through March. So that's my update.
Will you be able to do a Zoom thing?
I will be doing a Zoom thing with some of our partners from Sheridan, who we want to invite to the meeting, would prefer to attend via Zoom as well. And then it's easier for our partners in Grand Ronde to attend via Zoom as well. So, so yes.
Thanks. Okay, so we're on to new business. Public record retention process.
Bum, bum, bum. What did I do? Okay. I'm going to point that out too. So this, not so much for this year, because we're going to be wrapping up our library board year this year. But some of the things we've been going through as a city under all of our new leadership is really trying to bring all of our processes up to par as to where we should be. And one of those processes that we've kind of let go a little bit is public record retention. And the library board is becoming more and more recognized as a city board, like, you know, that's appointed by the mayor. You guys now have fancy name tags. Tracy, you're recognized at the table, just so you know.
Whoa!
Bet you never thought you'd see one of those. And just all the things that go along with being a public body. And one of the perks, that's right, that's right.
Who knew a nameplate could bring so much joy?
It's all joy. Even Carla said earlier today, she's like, when I was on the board, I didn't have one of those. So one of the things Crystal has done with all of our other city committees, including our council, is she created record boxes for them. And anytime you take notes at a meeting, Those are technically public record. So then we would you would collect all of your public records for the library board year and then turn them in to me. So what I'd like to do, because we don't necessarily meet with the amount of information and project management that some of the other boards and committees meet with. Instead of you guys having boxes, unless you guys are super passionate about having boxes taking up space in your households, I was thinking how we could do it maybe for the library board, and it'll be up to you to decide, is starting next library board year. So in September, you would all get folders, and you could keep your year of library board in the folder, and then I can maintain a box here. And then at the end of the year, you could just turn in your library board folder, and because it will take us some time to fill up that box with all the amazing packets we have here. And then we would collect all of your notes you took during that time as well. So any piece of paper you write on, basically.
What is that?
I got this for my birthday, like at the end of March. And it's like, it takes notes here, but I think I can print them out.
I love it.
Or I'm pretty sure I can email
Yeah.
for sure. That's why. I like
Then
it.
there we go.
All right.
Done and
As
done.
long as we can get a copy, right?
Yeah, as long as they're somewhere, because then I can even just drop them into our folder on our drive. So
Yeah, as long as they're somewhere, even on the drive, digital.
Oh, on the drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I think it's gonna be great.
Mhm.
yeah,
Right to there.
What is that little device?
It's called a super note. And so.
you need one of those.
I do need one of those.
Teaching and all the meetings, and
Nice.
everything I'm going to, I think. I have all these random piles of paper around my house and around my classroom that are in different notebooks. So my husband's like, you just need to get all that stuff in one place.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
City council members, Bridget? Put that in our budget.
Yeah, so far, this is only my third time taking notes. I'll let you know.
Okay.
It looks super fun. I was watching
It is
her over
fun.
there. I was like, what is she doing? We need one, Sarah.
We do.
Yeah,
Yes, I
need
definitely need
that.
one. So any questions about that or feedback? So in September, y'all get a fancy folder. I'll see what I can do to get Crystal to prepare such folders with
Right.
names and board years, maybe, so that we know what year you've got those notes for, and then I'll work on getting a box from her that's here, that's library board. And then those records are here too, so if you ever wanted to come back and reference something too, you could come back and look at it, so. But our amazing team is working on really honing in on our records and our record retention. So, and we get to be a part of that process finally. They're long. And that's that one.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Will that extend to the fundraising committee and the facility?
Not yet, but what we will probably do is eventually start collecting. The fundraising committee will, once they're a 501c3, they're responsible for their record retention in a whole different kind of way. So they'll kind of fall under some other rules, and they'll have some record retention that they do have to keep, but it won't necessarily fall under like library board, so like it won't mix or intermingle with our board stuff, to still keep it separate. So
Cool. Then the 2022 to 2034 budget.
The long budget.
Whoa,
planning
that is
into the future. So far into the future, I don't even know where I'll be. I need to share my screen again. Let's see if I can figure those out.
And that should say 2024, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So we try to do 1 year at a time here, but unless you're me, and then you do multiple years at a time. Let's see, you don't want to see that. All right. Can you see my screen, Tracy?
Yes, I can.
All right. So you should be looking at our upcoming proposed budget. And there's just some things I want to highlight on it to kind of help you understand the financials a little bit better. So the first column, so you have, I think you guys all, yeah. Okay. So the first couple columns, those are all of our line items for the library specifically. That first column after staff requests, those were the numbers that I submitted to Bridget and said, please consider this. The next column was our approved budget for this fiscal year that we're currently in. And then the last column in bold there is the city's proposed budget going forth to budget committee meetings here coming up in May. So a few things I'd like to point out to the far right. I gave a few rough estimates of what it costs us for staff. So when I asked for $70,000, that was based on a 0.8 library assistant, 32 hours, so up to 32 hours a week, and a 0.8 library director up to 32 hours a week. So now you have our salaries there for next fiscal year. And then if we could have added an additional part-time staff, which would have been our youth services coordinator position, what it looks like to have that person up to 16 hours a week at a 0.4 FTE. And then brand new, because what has happened is we didn't utilize all of our salary for this fiscal year due to all the transitions that happened within the city. So I've been given the go-ahead to add another teen library assistant for this summer. Nice. Thank you, Bridget. And I see another typo. Boy, I am rocking at misspellings this month. So I'll start working on that, but you can see there how much that person will cost me for June, July, and August, depending on how many hours I give them. And to recap a few things. Any questions actually before I go into budget recap on this, like the staffing figures there?
With the teen library assistant, that was like you just had kids submit like an application and show something like, just like last year.
Yeah, it's just I won't have the restrictions of the grants that paid for my two teams last year, because one was paid with a grant from the State Library of Oregon, and another one was paid with the youth wage grant, and that some of their salary was supplemented through Workforce Oregon? I can't even remember anymore. So this year we just don't have the restrictions that are tied to those, so we could be a little bit more flexible. But I do want to target teens. And I do want to give them a work experience here at the library, because it was so valuable to the two that we had last summer. I think it opens up a whole bunch of opportunities. So yeah. Nice. So are there any other questions? So moving into what the budget recap looks like. So our total expenditures, so line items 5,100 through 5912 come to $151,310. Staff expenditures alone, as you can see, is the bulk of that. And then our other expenditures, which are oh boy, I was wrong on that, huh? So total expenditures is line 5,000 all the way down. Other expenditures are 5,100 and down. So some things to know is, if you think about our budget for next fiscal year, our budget for the library is that $151,000. So now we need to consider what's coming in to the library and how we pay for that $151,000. So a few things I'd like to share there down at the bottom when we talk about revenues. So the first number that is an absolute, that we know for sure that's coming in by a check, is that first number, the CCRLS formula, which is going to be that $12,274. That's the formula reimbursement. We get quarterly checks for that, and that is what we absolutely know what's coming in. That accounts for 8% of our total budget of $151,000. Numbers not guaranteed are the numbers we've put in for net lending, donations, and grants. These numbers are assumed. If we don't get the net lending and or the donations, those impact the city portion that covers our budget, also known as the general fund. So if we were to get that $4,600, then the general fund from the city of Willamina pays $133,000 into the library. If we don't get that, then either we spend less or the city pays more towards the library. Grants are always a bonus. If we add a grant, that adds an expenditure. So if I go out and get a grant for $2,000, then we add a new line item and that adds on to our total budget by $2,000. So we never get grants that cover the costs that we already have. We always have new grants that have new spending requirements and add on to our expenditures. The only grant that does not include is the Ready to Read grant, because that is an every year grant that's available to us. And as long as we apply for it, it's always covered in our revenue, which is always covered in our expenditure. And that one's always accounted for dollar for dollar. So if all of these numbers pan out, the city, then the general fund will cover $133,000 of our total budget. Some things I like to point out is because people think, oh, 8%, that's not very much. But I was having a conversation with another library director at a medium-sized library, and I thought it would be valuable information for you to see. If we did not have that 8%, that would cut books, audiovisual, programming, supplies, dues, licenses, and permits, and subscriptions. All those line items go away, and then all you have is staff. So that 8% has a huge impact on our little budget. That is next year's budget. Questions, comments, feedback, concerns?
Has this already been approved by the city council?
It will not be approved until June. Okay. So it'll go before budget committee, which they're still looking for budget committee members. And they have 2 scheduled meetings that they have to attend to review the entire budget, if anybody's interested. And then it'll go to the city council meeting in June for final approval. And then it's got deadlines to go out to the state and about 1 million other people by July 1. So.
Good job. Not a lot of work. If you know any friends or family.
That doesn't have anything to do.
Yes.
Turn those city limits.
I made that little spiel. Sorry, it's okay.
It's okay.
I made that little spiel at chamber last week. So we need budget, and Gary Brooks, he goes, "Do you see anybody in this room that lives within the city limits?" It's planned like that.
He would say that.
Great. Well, that's our budget.
That's awesome. The next thing is the collection development policy. And I just wanted to, Sarah sent me the current collection development policy and a bunch of other info. I haven't actually had a chance to sit down with it, but I just wanted to, did you send that to everyone or just me?
Yeah, it's in March, when I got back from my vacation and after our March board meeting, I did send out a lot of documents. And in those documents were collection development policies for Willamina, Mount Angel, and Newburgh, as well. Oh, right here. No, I'm trying to pull it up right now. So when was that? Was that in March? I think that was March. Oh, well.
The first week of March.
Didn't I say? Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. So it had our collection development policy, Mount Angels, Newburgh's, the intellectual freedom, article that I sent out, plus on that was also the public library standards that we have to meet to be considered a public library as well. And so the public library standards is due for an audit, probably overdue. Luckily, we're meeting the minimums, but it's always good to go through that to just see where we can make improvements. And collection development, I bring it up because for a couple of reasons. And I'm really super glad that Tyler brought it up tonight. I was hoping he would when I sent him his email. So we've had our closest incident yet at Canby High School, where they've pulled, I believe it was 36 books off the shelf for review. And that's hitting a little too close to home as far as school libraries go. And I think in there too, I sent, and if I didn't, I meant to Newburgh Public Library, which is one of our CCRLS libraries, and also pretty close to home, has faced a number of challenges over the years since the pandemic. And then Mount Angel is a small library in our system. So it just goes to show it's not just the larger libraries at risk of challenges. It's also our smallest libraries as well. Newburgh has gone to bat against all their challenges and has not had one single issue yet to come out of those challenges. They've been able to go up against every single one with their policy and their processes. So really what that means is having a good policy and then a good process for your board and governing body to have to review those challenges and come to agreement on those challenges and how to handle those challenges. So for example, a challenge could come in and then it would come to the library board for the library board to review against the collection development policy. And then if the challenge needed to go on to the governing body or just a response could be made to. A lot of times these challenges are easy handled just by a conversation from the library director to the person challenging the material, but not in all instances. So that is why I brought it up in that email that I sent out to you guys, because it's better to be prepared and nothing happen than to have something happen and not be prepared for it.
Yeah, and the flavor of things going around, it seems like it's just a matter of time.
Yes.
And yeah, for us to be prepared for it. Very exciting. So that's really all I wanted to bring up, was just to encourage everyone to read it over, our policies, and think about, I guess, do you think those policies are kind of newish, right? The third policy?
Our collection development policy was put into place just, I think it was back in 2018 or 2019, just prior to the pandemic. I think Newburgh has made some improvements to theirs, and while they're a much larger library than we are, and we don't have to meet the same necessary guidelines, I took our collection development policy off of McMinnville libraries and catered it to our library. So it could, if the library board wanted to, it could be up for review and just going through with a fine comb, starting comb. Thank you. Tooth. There's the word. Tooth or tooth, whichever. Comb starting in September, just as a quick side project. It would be easy to go through it really fast, and then just make sure there's a clean procedure, because that's something we don't have. Like, what if a challenge comes in? Then what are the steps that the board would take? Because ultimately, it would be a good communication tool as well, so that if somebody went to city council, then they could say, you should submit that through the library board first. So we want to make sure all parties are on the same, and because really they should take recommendation from you, ultimately, even though they're the deciding body and they don't have to, but ultimately they would want you guys to review that, and understand the meat of that request or that challenge, instead of them making the deciding factor without having some history into it, for review, because they wouldn't have our collection development policy necessarily in front of them, to make a decision. So yes, but that will be up to you guys to decide if you want to tackle that starting in September, even if I'm rooting for it.
So maybe by next month, we'll make a decision and maybe we can vote on whether or not we want to review it or whatever. Okay. Is there any public input? There is no public.
Public. I invited the public. They didn't come.
That's public.
Announcements and calendar. I guess that's you again.
Well, I mean, here's the bulk of it, really, right here. This is my life for the next May, June, July. So this is 5 months. Yeah, this is my life for the next 5 months.
Almost a half a year.
And then July 9th is the next fundraising committee meeting. I'm sure calendar invite and all that stuff will go out for that. And then I showed that there's 2 budget committee meetings coming up. If you or anyone you know would be interested in that. And then I can't think of anything else calendar wise.
We have, I don't know if you all know, but we have a library book club. Did you all know that? It's the first Monday of every month, 4:30 to 5:30 here at the library.
It is not. That's what I'm gonna have to add. See?
Yeah, we only have 4 people so far.
You want to tell them
5.
what we're reading? They can
What
get
day
started
is it?
reading.
No, it's the first Monday of every month. We're currently reading, I finished it yesterday, actually. We're currently reading All Creatures Great and Small. The ladies, I'm probably the least of the group, but everyone's really into historical fiction. It's not my normal genre, but I've read some great books, and that's one I've never read. And so when we realized none of us had read it, or it'd been a really long time, so actually that's what we read this month. So it's fun. We all bring a book that we think we'd like to read, and then we all kind of discuss them and read the covers and talk about them. And then the other thing we do is we make sure that whatever book we choose is available in the library or that we can get through the web so that nobody has to purchase the book. We have one lady that prefers audio, so we make sure that that's available as well. So it's been kind of fun. I've gotten to know some ladies I didn't know. I'm in a personal book club as well, and I was talking to Carla about it. People asking. So we have 4 or 5 people, depending on the week, but you know, anybody likes to read, it's kind of a fun group. And we only meet for an hour. We're very punctual. We do talk about the book, and then we talk about, you know, last month we spoke how much we didn't like the book. And,
I was halfway through it.
Yeah, it was a tough one. It was a tough one. I gave up. I usually don't do that, but it's kind of fun. So if you know anyone or you're looking for, you know, some new books, like I said, reading things I would have never read, it's kind of fun. So you go. And the book, it was pretty good if you've never read it. All Creatures Great and Small. It's pretty good. It's not a bet. I didn't know.
I knew this was a draft for a reason.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If you're interested, reach out to Sarah and she can pass it on to me because I usually run it, sending out all the emails, reminding everybody and
That really is good.
Yeah. So I can let me text you, but reach out to Sarah.
What time on Monday?
4:30 to 5:30. So we're done by dinner time. We're going to try to be respectful of that, because you know, working and kids and families and all that stuff. So we haven't yet talked about if we're going to go through the summer or not. The summer just gets so busy. I know in my personal book club sometimes we kind of take a little break in the summer just because everybody's busy and stuff. So that's something we'll probably talk about. You know, maybe take a month or 2 off because of the summer. Yeah, there you go. That's all I got.
Cool.
It's fun.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it then. Would anybody care to motion to adjourn?
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Excellent. And do we have a second?
I would, but I can't, so.
You want to second that, Emily?
Yep, I will second that.
Excellent. Then we did it.
We did it.
6:47.
Did you like turn the page? How did you get to a new page?
You just push down here, click next page.